So today's project, we're going to be installing a hydraulic coupler here so we don't have to disconnect the bucket over and over again. This is going to be a lengthy one because we're going to need to plumb an entire couple of lines all the way back to the manifold here, and then we're going to install maybe one or two more new manifolds. There's already an extra connection, the auxiliary lines right here we can see. Those are actuated from the foot pedal here, that thing right there. I've also got a new foot pedal that works in both directions, or two-way rather than side to side. I think it's forward and backwards or something like that, but I'm going to need to see that. But we're going to be plumbing in that for the thumb and the hydraulic coupler. Like I said, maybe we'll use the auxiliary for the coupler, the foot operated one right here. So either we'll use this for the coupler, or maybe we'll use the lines for the thumb with the new plumbing that we do. So, we're also going to replace the joysticks here. The joysticks themselves do not have a thumb operation at the moment, so we have all of that brand new. We're going to be installing it somewhere in here next to this manifold. I presume this one already has an extra one or two solenoids that could be used, but I don't want to go digging into the original stuff. Also, there's no information on this machine, so it's best to probably just do this part of it from scratch and just do it separate. I do notice that there is a tank return port on this, so I might try to tap into that and feed the one or two new solenoids that we have in series through that part of the circuit, and hopefully that will work. So this is the output from this manifold right here, so the flow of the oil, if it's not being used, goes straight back into the tank through this line here, this one. So the output of this we can put into the solenoids. Presumably that should work, and then the output of that would go right back into this pipe here. So the circuit won't break, it's going to be completed, and we'll also have another solenoid in series that we can use the new joystick controls to actuate, and then those lines can follow these lines all the way to the thumb and the coupler. So let me show you everything that I've purchased. I've ordered it from China, so it's a lot cheaper than buying from Cat, because Cat, I think they said it was like 15 or 16,000 to put a progressive thumb onto this machine, and the coupler was separate. So we'll leave that as it is, and we went with, you know, a little bit of a cheaper option. Of course, there's going to be a lot of work to it, but it's going to save a ton of money. So let me try to explain it as best I can with the new stuff. So here's everything that we have gotten. I actually bought this like a year ago, and then it's just been sitting in storage ever since. So this is a thumb that we're going to be installing. It's a huge thumb, 2-finger thumb. I think these are best suited for this type of machine, or this size. You can't really put a 3-finger thumb because the bucket's not going to be wide enough. So we got a 2-finger thumb. We got the mount for it, which will weld to the arm, which I'll show you in a second. Once that is welded into place, we can mount the entire thumb. So the thumb will mount to one side of it as a pivot, and then we'll have the hydraulic cylinder, which will connect here and here to actuate it, basically. We also have the lines for it right there for the thumb, and then we have all the wiring, etc., for the new joysticks. I have 2 solenoids in here. We could either just use one, or just create 2 new circuits for the thumb and hydraulic coupler, and then leave the auxiliary as is for future implements. So we'll see about that, but I don't really have an exact idea of how we're going to do this at the moment, because these kits are fairly general. These are the new joysticks. They have 3 buttons on them. Each one does something different. So I'm trying to use either this one on this joystick, these two buttons, to actuate the thumb up and down, and the other joystick could have the hydraulic coupler, or I could put it all on one, on my left thumb. So we'll see how that goes. Both of them look the same. I have a ton of connectors and adapters. We also have a whole set of lines for the hydraulic coupler itself, so if we don't want to use the auxiliary, we can run these lines for the coupler. So the coupler is right here. We can see, even though it's been ordered online, and it's, you know, presumably you would think that since we ordered it from out of states it's going to be cheap quality, but as you can see, it's not. It's very heavy duty, it's very good quality. Seems like it'll hold up to the task, and it does have, you can see the cylinder right there, which will be hooked up, and it's huge. So this is gonna be the coupler that we're gonna install. We're gonna install this thumb, and that's basically the whole, you know, material device. Here's the new foot pedal. It seems like it's the same. I might not have to replace this, but I do have an extra one that came with the kit, just in case. And then we have the solenoid here. So this is the solenoid we're going to install. So power, tank, and then the outputs for the cylinder, for the thumb, or the coupler, either one. So it's an electric solenoid. It's fairly simple. We just need to figure out the connections between the existing lines on the machine, which seem to be huge, and these tiny ones here. So adapters are going to be a must. There is a switch. I believe this is to like completely open or run an implement or something. Yeah, so we have a bunch of fittings to hold the lines on the arm. We have all the electrical stuff we need. We have the cylinder, we can see right here for the thumb. It's all ready and good to go. We just need to mount this, get all the hydraulic circuitry installed, and we should be good and golden. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to show you where I'm going to start. So I'm thinking to start from the cabin. I'm going to disassemble as much of this as I can. I'm going to take the seat out. I'm going to undo all of these plastic pieces, and then we're going to get access to the joysticks. So we'll start from the joysticks and then we'll work backwards. Once we can get the electrical stuff sorted in the cabin, all we need to do is run the wires towards where we're going to mount the solenoids, and then this part of it will be done. As you can see, this is the old or existing foot pedal, and I don't think it's a two-way pedal. It's got a lock right here, and then it's got, I don't know, it's confusing. So who knows, maybe we'll have to replace that and install the other one so the auxiliary can be two-way. So yeah, we're gonna disassemble everything, start from here, and hopefully it'll all work. So I'll bring you back when I've got as much of this disassembled as I can. Alright, so everything's been disassembled. I've got both of the console here taken apart, and then the seat removed as well. I've been on this side before, that's why it's a little bit cleaner than the other side. There is a problem where if you put down the safety, sometimes it doesn't register that the safety is down, so the machine is not usable. It's still locked, so you have to kind of slam on this a couple of times for it to work. And at first I thought it was the safety switch right here, which I've replaced, but it's not that. There's something in the wiring that's an issue. Might be a loose connection or something, so maybe, hopefully, we'll catch that while we're working on this. But the next step basically is to, I've got one of the joysticks here kind of removed. I'm going to remove both of the joysticks. It's got the same connection hopefully, so it'll just screw right in, and we'll get the existing stuff, which is the low and high speed controller on this side, and the low and high speed controller on this side, and the horn on that side. So we'll get that hooked up so it's stock as it is, gets all the regular stuff working, and then we'll start adding the extra stuff to get the solenoid controls and the rest of the wiring in place. So let me go ahead and start disassembling that, and then I'll install the new ones, and then I'm going to try to wire some things up, and then I'll explain what I did. Alright, so I've got the new handles installed. As you can see, they went on pretty well. The threads are the same. I had to use the old dust boots here just because they didn't give me the ones that come with these. They're supposed to, and I had them in talks to provide those as well when I purchased these, but they just didn't give them to me, so they're missing basically. Unfortunately, I did pay for them and they didn't give them to me, and so I'm in talks with the sellers, and they are pretty much in denial that they're gonna send them to me. So hopefully I can go through the platform and they can give me some justice. Otherwise, in the meantime, I'm missing boots, and it's just the old ones, which they're not meant for this. They're about to break. I did force them on here, but these are for the round style, so this one's square up here, that's why. But yeah, so far it's working good. Of course, the function is actually on this valve box down here. The only thing we did is thread the new handle on right here, and then gave it a lock nut, tightened it up so it doesn't move. So the handles are all good and ready to go. I've got the wires dangling here. It's a a connector. It's a 6-pin connector on both. So let me take you over to the next steps. Basically, I'm going to explain with the material how we're going to put this together. So this is basically all the stuff we're going to need to install the hydraulic coupler. This reel, basically all this wiring and all these connectors and this controller here, it is going to be used for the thumb basically, and then the horn and the 2-speed for the acceleration, those switches on the handles. So that is going to be basically put to the side for now until I get the solenoids for the thumb. They didn't give me the solenoids for the thumb, so I'm gonna have to source them somewhere. But so far I have everything I need to install the hydraulic coupler, so this guy. So we're gonna start off with that. Basically how it's gonna function is we're gonna route the piping from one of the connections on the existing valve body, and we're just gonna tap into there, and then we're gonna feed one of those into the power port of the valve here. It is a normally open valve, I believe, so it continuously directs flow to, if you could see that, port A here, and once we power it, the solenoid actuates, and then it provides power, flow to port B. And that's the only way we control the coupler. It will also have a little lockout switch. Basically, this is what's going to operate it. Usually an alarm or something comes with it. It's supposed to be in this kit, but they didn't provide it, unfortunately. And it's supposed to be a rotary switch, but they just threw in one of these toggle switches, unfortunately. It does have a light. It looks like a hazard light switch, but basically what it's supposed to do is once you flip this switch, it directs flow to port B, and that will, it'll show a light, and the hydraulic coupler will then open, so it'll unlock the bucket. Once we put the switch down, it's going to redirect flow back to port A, and it's going to continuously put pressure on that cylinder, so it's going to stay locked, so it doesn't loosen or anything like that. So this is basically a single acting valve. It doesn't have the double flow or double control or anything. It has to stay normally open for it to put pressure on the lock, so the bucket doesn't come loose during use, or so it doesn't damage anything, it doesn't follow anyone. So this is just how these couplers work. Like I said, there's one more thing that's missing, which is an alarm, which I believe I'll source somewhere. I'll find it. If not, I'll just get a random alarm that can be fed off of the switch. That way you know that the alarm, or when the alarm's going off, you can tell that the bucket's unlocked. So you need to make sure before you move anything to lock the bucket first. So we're going to be routing, of course, using this piping here from the main valve box to the boom here. So from over there up here, whoops, up, and then up to this point here. Once that happens, we're going to transfer to these middle pipes. That will give us kind of the rigidity we need to guide the rest of the way under this cylinder, in between right there. And then the connections will be like right where we need them for that thing. And then we have two other small pipes that are going to be hooked up from the ends of this to that. And that's basically the entire connection. We're going to be feeding this from one of the existing ports. We're going to tap into it, and we're going to feed this, and then we're going to give it a tank return port as well. That way, once this is all hooked up and ready to go, we'll take the wiring to the cabin, we'll install the switch, we'll feed it from somewhere, and we'll power it with 12 volts. And that's basically it. Once we hit the switch, the solenoid will activate, which will create the path for the coupler to unlock or lock. So that's basically the entire connection. We have all the little pieces we need, elbows, T's, connectors, everything in there. We also have the mounting brackets. We will need to weld these, so we'll weld the bottom part of them, this part, if you can see it. Yeah, the bottom part right here, we'll weld it to the machine, and then the top will be bolt on. That way the pipes, any pipe, either that one or the hard pipes, they'll be held in place, no issue. So that's basically the whole process. I'm gonna start working on that, and I'll bring you guys back once I have most of this installed. That way I could give you a clearer picture rather than you guys sitting through and watching me figure things out as I go, because there's no instructions on this, and this is just from the research I've done and how I'm from the parts, how I'm gonna put this together. You can see everything is in like Chinese basically. I did translate all this and wrote it down, but some of them don't make sense. But basically this harness here, along with this controller, these connectors here, there's one of these, and then there's another 6-pin, if I could find it. Yeah, this guy, I think. No, not this one, but there's two 6-pin connectors like this. Basically they go to the handles, and then we have the rotary valve as well if you want to run an implement. So this is just a rotary connection kit basically, but cool thing is that you can run 2 solenoids off of this as well, which this is what we're going to be using for the thumb, and not use the auxiliary connections that are already on the machine. I don't want to use the foot pedal for it, although it is an option. It's a quick, if I don't want to do the rest of the connecting and plumbing, I can just hook it up to the auxiliary, and then I'll have it working with a foot pedal. But for now, I'm going to attempt to source the 2 solenoids that I need to make the thumb work, and we'll basically go from there. Install as much as we can. We'll get the plate welded on as well, and then we'll hook the thumb up to that, along with the cylinder here. But of course, if I bring you over to the machine, we need to redo all of this. So I have new ones of all of these. The bucket is kind of, it's wide at this area, it's bent over there, so I'm going to try to fix that a little bit. I'm trying to reduce the wiggling, basically the rattling in the machine as much as possible, because it's very, very, very bad. It's just unusable. It makes too much noise, and it'll perform better as well. The bucket actually curls a little crooked as well, like in one direction rather than straight how it's supposed to be. So we'll fix that as well. We're going to replace all of these pins. We're going to replace these curved ones, this H bar, and yeah, I'm going to try to repaint the bucket. I've gotten most of the concrete off of it. Maybe I'll give it a good grind with a grinder, and then we'll paint that as well. But just to continue, kind of give you an overview, the metal lines will end up somewhere in the middle here, and we can just then run them down to the hydraulic coupler, which will be right here, and that's where the flexible lines will come in as well. So I'll show you when I get most of it installed. Till then, I'll put you guys on hold for a minute, and then I'll transfer with the magic of editing when I've got most of it installed, and hopefully it'll all go smooth and I won't run into a hiccup like I have been running into so far. But I'll let you guys know if that's the case, and then we'll go from there. So I'll see you guys in a minute. Okay, so I finally got an idea of what I'm gonna do with the hydraulic circuit to hook up the coupler. I spent a long time studying this circuitry here because there's no documentation on how the hydraulics are run, or how this MCV is connected, or anything like that. So I just pretty much took apart a bunch of the machine, all the covers, traced as much of the piping as I could, and came to nothing from this part of it. All these pipes, pretty sure these are just tank and power ports, but it's extremely hard to pinpoint which is what, and I don't want to mess up the original functions of the machine. So of course I was thinking of tapping into, I guess let that helicopter pass, but I was thinking of tapping into the drive, or the rotating mechanism for the machine. This is the rotating motor that basically runs along the teeth of the bottom of the frame, so that turns the whole top of the machine. I was thinking of tapping into these two ports here, but again, I was not sure. I know one of them is the power or pump, so this one is the pump line, which goes up to here as well, and that line is this one right here. So that's this one right here. So I'm assuming those 3 or 4 back there are pump lines, and then these are all tank lines. This guy is a tank line, that's a tank line, but those are just too big to tap into with the little connectors that we have. So it didn't get me anywhere, so I ended up going towards the motor side, or the pump side, which is on the other side of the machine. So let me take you there. So we can see that's the main pump right there for the hydraulics. I actually, from my research, I guess, through looking at forums and whatnot, people were tapping into the high pressure side of the pump to feed something like this, to feed a hydraulic port or the coupler, which would be like somewhere over there. I think it's that pipe. But again, the connection's too large. We have a 1/4 inch connector, and I think that's a larger one, so that didn't work out. So I ended up tracing where those pipes go, and they go under the cab. You don't get to see them over by the MCV. They're under the cab. So let me take you under the cab. I did some more digging, and I opened the covering up for underneath the cab, so we could see all the hydraulics and everything right below here. Also, that safety lever issue is in this harness as well, so something might be loose in there. But we could see that all the hydraulics, all the main functions and everything are split from here, and we can see that they have already teed out of a bunch of these pipes. If I can show you, there's the T right there, and this is power and tank ports. All of these are tank, and then I think that's the power port. But right here, to confirm before I do anything, you can see tank and pump. So this is it. I was thinking of tapping into this guy from the very beginning, but I didn't want to, I wasn't sure if I could tee into these, but it seems like you can, because this machine has a ton of T connectors. We can see one back there too, right there. So that's what I planned on doing. I'm gonna tee into the track controls, basically these sticks right here, these two, and that's what controls the drive motors. So I realized even if I do tee into that, it's not going to affect much because I'm not going to be using them together. So we can see a clearer view of it right here. Of course, we've got the feeding lines, and then these are what go to the pump, the motors themselves down in the tracks, these guys. So that's what I'm planning on doing. I've got kind of the pipes laid out how I want them. I'm gonna bring them over here, and then there's bolts here where I can put that solenoid. So let me show you how I'm planning on putting the solenoid. So this is that solenoid, the same one with the two outputs, but I'm planning on mounting it something like this. So we can just loosen that bottom bolt and then get this behind the washer and then tighten it back up, and it should give clearance. It doesn't hinder anything, it doesn't touch anything. So I think that's a good place to mount it. I could mount it here as well, something along these lines, but we want to be able to remove the battery at some point if something goes wrong. And this is direct access to the battery. I'm also thinking at some point I might just relocate this battery, like in the newer machine, the newer 306E. The battery's right here, like in this area, with the disconnect as well. So I don't know what they were doing here. There's some box or something that goes here, but like I could cut up all these rebars and just mount the battery here, reroute the wiring, the main power cables. That way it's easier to access the battery too, because when this machine sits for too long, like maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks, the battery dies, because I think this might be the original battery. So yeah, this is kind of the plan that I've got. I'm gonna lay this all out and further connect everything. I'm also gonna mount the solenoid right where I told you guys. And then before I go further, I'm gonna give you kind of a picture of what I'm gonna do, or what I've done. So I'll bring you guys back when I'm done with that part. Alright, so I almost ran into an issue. There's two types of tees that are provided with the coupler kit. The machine has the seal lock fittings. All of them have these O-rings, which means that the other end of the pipe is flat like that. And the ones that are kind of given with the kit are flare fittings, like this, like with a flange. So there's two types of tees. There's the one that is 100% flanged, like this one. All three sides are flanged like this. And then there's this one that I luckily found, which has the O-ring fittings, the seal lock fittings on these two ends, and then the flare fitting on this end. So it's basically meant to tap into this machine's systems. So I'm going to continue doing this. This is what I've got so far. It does bring the pipe out a little bit more, but it's not enough to interfere with the cover here. So I think we'll be okay. And then we'll just put something here to keep the pipe from getting damaged. But yeah, let me continue doing this, and I'll bring you guys back when it's all finished. Okay, so kind of had a change of plans. I've got it all hooked up right here with the tees, with the proper tees. These are the original lines right here, these two, and then those two are the new lines. I ended up color coding them with zip ties just so I know which one is the pump and which one is the tank. But I basically gotten everything tightened up, and instead of taking it that way and over there, I've actually routed them this way. I don't know if you can see them, but with all of those pipes right there. I think you could see them. Oh, these ones right here. So I've routed them out towards the main control valve, and I've made sure when I tightened all of these, they're not touching anything so they don't rub and get damaged. Also, an easy way to do this, if the pipes aren't kind of going the way you want them to go, loosen the other end. Like for example, this pipe, when I wanted to tighten it, it would not align with the threads and it wouldn't seal. So I just loosened that side of it. So you can see this pipe that I'm moving. It's right there's where the fitting is. Right there. So I just loosened it like half a turn or like a little bit just so the pipe is a little free. And then I rotated it however I needed it. And then I just tightened that back up down there. So kind of like a tip to get these pipes to go where you want them to go. But let me show you the other side. I routed the pipes over here, these two pipes right here, and again I've got them color coded with zip ties. Had to do some custom work here because there's no place to mount the solenoid, but I want to mount it over there on that wall, and there's nothing there to really bolt onto except that thing. And if you see, it is gonna be too long basically. If I mount the solenoid there, it's gonna hit this thing here and then it's not gonna work. So came up with a bit of a custom solution here. I just took a piece of angle iron, sanded it down, got all the rust off, and then I just drilled 2 holes on there, and got 2 bolts to just create a welding point so it mounts like this, so I don't have to permanently attach the mount or the whole thing to the machine. So I can either mount it like this and weld the angle, or mount it like this and weld it. So I haven't decided yet, but I'm just gonna basically put it in here like that, and it's gonna be covered from the rain. It's not gonna get wet. I'm going to be able to route the piping properly, and the reason I rerouted it to this side was because the pipes that are gonna be good on the boom here, they're not that long. They're only after the boom. It's only like maybe 2 feet or something. There's not much to kind of route it all the way under the machine onto the other side. That was a good spot. There was also a mounting point, but I don't have enough piping and I didn't want to do too many coupling joints. So this is the idea. I'm gonna get it disconnected here. I'm gonna weld this angle iron onto the machine over there with a couple of tacks, and then I'm just gonna paint it so it's good and it doesn't rust. And I'll be back after I have it installed and I've got it all plumbed together. And then that's basically oh yeah, and then we have to wire it up. So after the wiring and the switch, that's basically the solenoid completed. Then we just need to route onto the boom. So let me go ahead and do that and I'll be right back. Alright, so we've got everything installed in terms of the solenoid mounting. You can see, let me see if I can get the camera in there. You can see the mount there. Not the best welding, but it is extremely tight in there. I couldn't even get the welding gun in there, so I just welded it how I could. It's very strong. I got a nice bead at the top of the angle. The rest of it is actually okay. It's not the most beautiful welding, but it's definitely gonna get the job done. So I did a little loop. I took the pipes this way and then I looped them this way and then around and right there. So those are the new pipes that we just installed from the pedals that move the machine forward. While I was painting, I kind of gave this thing a touch-up as well, but also while I was installing the solenoid, it kind of messed up the paint a little bit. So that's all good. Now we just need to wire it up. I also ran the arm pipes all the way to the front of the boom, so they follow these pipes here. You can see the zip ties follow. It follows those pipes all the way onto this side of the boom, and then right now I just have a little loop here, but I'm going to get a nice make it follow the actual boom a little more once I get these metal pipes here installed. So we're gonna have those metal pipes that come down to like here, and then we're gonna have the connection between the coupler and the piping that feed the coupler. So that's the next step. We're gonna weld those metal tabs in place that hold the pipes I'm gonna try to do one here and like one up there, and that way it's gonna hold the metal piping much better. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do about this just yet. I don't know if I should just leave it or maybe I should grind it down to make it look a little prettier, I guess. But I was thinking of replacing it because I do have a extra one of these, because I think the bushings inside are worn out as well, and the shape of the actual the 1-inch hole inside is like elongated on one side, I believe, because of the pin gap, because there was so much play in there, I believe. But I think I'm going to try to install the coupler, the hydraulic coupler, and if it works, then I'm going to leave it, and then all I have to do is just replace all of that. But for now, let's just leave it as is, and then we're going to finish the plumbing part of it, as well as I'm going to wire it up and take the wires inside to the switch in the cab, and hopefully it'll all work out. So I'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay, finally I've got it all installed, all the pipeline. The hard line is also installed, as we can see here. I've got these guys welded on, the clamps. One's right there, one's right there. Not the best welding, but I've got them welded, and I've got it painted and everything, and they are not moving, they're not going anywhere. So from here, the lines will then just go to the coupler right here. So we're gonna have pipes now, rubber pipes. If we look up here, you can see I've got one more coupler in here. I had to use a spacer, so I just used like I think it's a 1/8 inch thick flat bar that I just cut like 1.5 inch or 2 inch, a little bit wider than this clamp right here. You can kind of see it. It's right there, right with the welding. But yeah, so the lines go down. I don't think I can show you guys. There we go. So the lines go down. If I can zoom, there's an even gap. I can't focus, but there's an even gap throughout, so it's not touching anywhere. And then we've got elbows here, which then just have a little bit of a, you know, extra pipe play, which then connects to that main line that I brought up earlier. I still need to guide it a little bit. Got some paint on it. Still need to guide it a little bit, but other than that, that's about it in terms of routing the hydraulic couplers, hydraulic lines. We've gotten it all the way down over there, and it seems like it's all good to go. So now, oh, and by the way, if you notice, I didn't use the extra, one more extra piece. It's like a 2 or 3 feet long piece of pipe that I was supposed to use a coupler and connect it to the ends of this pipe, but I didn't do that because I changed it up a little bit. Rather than take it to the side, I routed it this way. Originally what I had planned was to bring it here. Those bent pieces up there would actually come out here, and then they would bend outwards like this, and there would be an elbow that points it up, and then those hoses would loop like this one and connect here. So I didn't do that. Instead I did this, which I thought looked a lot cleaner. And that's basically it in terms of the routing. Tomorrow, I think this is it for today. It's getting late. Tomorrow I'm gonna install the coupler if possible. Like I said, the main boom cylinder here is actually missing. It's in the shop, so I can't raise the boom or lower it. So it's tough to get all of the, it's tough to raise it so I can install the coupler and remove the bucket. So it's either that tomorrow, and I still need to wire it up. So those are the two things I need to do for the coupler, and then that's the end of the installation for the coupler. So I can show you one more time the finished product in terms of the solenoid as well. That's all well in place and good to go. It's all painted, it's all tightened, and we're all set. So So I'll see you guys tomorrow with the wiring step. So I've got everything rerouted. Like I showed you guys, we installed this, and then I also rerouted all the piping from the middle rather than the side. I thought that would look cleaner, and it just protects the pipe a little bit better as well. Plus I didn't have to use that extension, the 2 feet extension. So there it is, nicely installed. And then I've got the wiring completed as well. So I've grounded it to the mounting bolt of the solenoid, and then I've taken the power wire, I've sealed it up as well with liquid electrical tape, and I've hooked it up with a spade connector in there, so I can disconnect it if I ever need to. But let me just show you underneath. Actually, I've routed it with the original wiring of the machine, and I had to take it to the other side because that's where all the rocker switches are. So let me just show you. So I've routed it this way. As you can see, the purple zip tie right there, and the blue, so it comes from over there up here, and then it goes up into the cabin through this with the rest of the cabling. We can see the red wire in there, so it basically comes through from right here and right there. There we go. So the wiring for the solenoid is pretty much complete. I've just been cleaning the machine up, that's why it's wet. I disconnected everything and just kind of cleaned up the bottom here. But that's basically it for the solenoid connection part. Now the only thing left is we cut a hole for the rocker switch and the plastics up here. And then if I take you over to the boom, we have gotten everything nice and sturdy, I guess you can say. Since we don't have the boom cylinder, we have to kind of manually do this. We've got it all hooked up and it's jacked up. We have the bucket jacked up, so we're going to slowly release these pins, and then we're going to drop the bucket. The arm is sturdy, it's not moving, it's not going anywhere. So once we get the coupler installed, we're going to have a better, you can see it right there. We have a gap underneath now, so we can put the coupler on that way. I'm going to prep the area and then install the coupler, and then I'm going to hook up the pipes right here, and then I'll bring you guys back when all of this is completed. Alright, so we've got the bucket taken out. It actually took us a lot longer than I thought it would, because these pins and their bolts were super jammed up, and the bolts were like literally melted in because of how much wear they had. So they were just a molten piece of metal stuck inside that hole, so it was really hard to get those out. We had to cut them out, and we had to punch it out with a punch and a hammer. But eventually it worked out. We took everything apart, we cleaned up all the bushings and whatnot. You can see it's all clean. We noticed that this one does not have very much play, but this one has a little bit of play to where the pin can make like a knock-in sound. And of course, when that play gets down to like this area, it's going to be significant. But we have a new one of these guys, so I don't know if I want to just push the bushings out and put new bushings, or take this whole thing out and re-weld it, because it is also like concaved like that. This part is worn out compared to the outer ring, so it's like a concave, it's like angled inwards. Same thing with this side, but I've got it prepped for a painting. Right now I'm leaning towards that bushing removal idea rather than taking the whole thing out, because it seems like it's fine. It's nice and heavy duty, but it's just that there's a little bit of play in the bushings. This cylinder is missing that dust seal for the pin on this side. As you can see, it is here for this side. But other than that, we think that the cylinder's good, but the rod at some point will need to be redone because of that damage. That was there when I got the machine. It's not leaking just yet, so I'm just gonna leave it be. But someday, if it does leak significantly, I'm just gonna take the rod out and have them machine a new rod for me. So just cut off the eye and just weld it onto a new rod, and then machine the threaded end. The shop guy told me that the material for this rod, or these like cylinder rods, are not that expensive. machining out this whole section and doing it all again is what the expensive part is. But if we just cut it off and re-weld it and then machine that, that's a lot easier to do. But yeah, I basically have taken out all the new parts. This is that H bracket. It's a little bit shorter than the original. Also, the round part is a little bit not as chunky, I guess. It's a little bit thinner. But I think it'll be okay because the coupler, the hydraulic coupler, will cover. It's going to be adding length to this part of the mechanism anyways. So I think we'll be fine. We've got new H brackets. These are the old like, I guess, arch pieces. They're also super beat up, and I think their holes are also they have a lot of play. These are all the pins that I took out. Some of them don't even have a head. They don't have a head piece. It's just a straight up pin, and they're super worn out. As we can see, there's grooving happening inside. So we have new pins as well. These are the new H brackets, or I mean the arch bits. These are brand new. We got new pins that look similar to this one. I've also made sure when I got these pins that there's grooves all along the pin for the grease to flow through. Those pins, when I pulled them out, you can see there's only grease like here and here, and I've been greasing these a lot. So I don't know where all that grease goes. Either it just gets pushed out, or it's just not going to the rest of the pin, and that's why there's so much wear on these parts of it. This pin was good. It looks like it's a different type of pin. It's a machined pin, polished. These were probably like that at some point, but they're not anymore. So I'm just gonna paint up that arm. I'm gonna take out all the old all the new stuff and get it all prepped for installation, and then we're gonna couple the hydraulic coupler on there, and then we'll see how that looks. So I'll be right back. All right, so here is pretty much the 99% finished product. I say 99% because I still need to tighten these lines and test. That's like the only thing left. But you can see I've got everything brand new. We got these arcs are brand new, the H bracket is brand new, and then we have the entire coupler installed as well. It's looking amazing. I repainted the entire arm up until like here. So this part is pretty much all redone, because I'm assuming that this part is never going to get damaged anymore, unless something strikes it inwards. But just in regular digging and using the machine that way, I don't think anything's going to affect it. So other than that, I think this is good to go. We have everything hooked up. It's all perfectly ready to utilize. I need to do something about these pipes. I might just tie them together like right here so they don't rub against these arcs right here. You can see the pins are all brand new as well. Brand new pins, brand new everything, so there's absolutely no wiggle room. I've got spacers in between each of these gaps. You can see each of the spots have spacers. Even with spacers, some of this stuff still has gaps, but it's not going to move. I'm pretty like 98% sure it's not going to move at all, and it's going to be almost 100% better than what I had. But you can see the coupler right here. I have the piston inside, which is going to move this lock, so it's either going to keep pressure this way or I can pull it in. There's also a lock pin for it. I think this is for either like storage or just store the pin or lock the bucket so it doesn't open, one or the other. So yeah, I think it looks good, looking really good actually. Looks like 100% better than what it was. I'm pretty excited for this actually. I can't wait to use it. I can't wait to test it. I showed you on the machine side, everything was all nice and ready to go. But yeah, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wait until I get that boom cylinder and actually test it and show you guys how this thing functions. And I think by then I'll have this bucket all prepped and painted and good to go. I'll also fix the ears. Not that it'll have too big of an effect on this thing's usage, but yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll wait for the boom cylinder over here that I have. It's right there. It's missing at the moment, so I'm gonna wait for that, and then I'll get it running, and I'll get it tested, and I'll show you guys. But we'll know. You guys will see it pretty quick. I still have a couple days to wait, maybe a week. I don't know. The guys at the shop are still deciding whether they want to redo the whole rod, or do they just want to just weld it all up and then remachine it on the threaded end for the rod. So we'll see for that. For the bucket, we don't have any pins, as you can see, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take these pins and I'm going to permanently fix them to that bucket. I'm not thinking of tack welding them, but I'll just bolt them in so they don't move. Alright, so the next step for the coupler installation is we got to install the switch that's going to control the coupler. So in this position, in the off position, the coupler is going to stay locked, but when we flip it on, the light will turn on, and we'll also get the flow from the pilots to go through the coupler, so it'll open the coupler. So this is the next step. I was wondering where I could install it. On the right hand panel where I originally thought, where I routed the wiring, there's no space. The entire thing is just packed. So the left hand side is the only place, plus the other toggle switches are on there, rocker switches I mean. Anywhere else there was space up here, which I thought I could cut a new hole so I don't mess up the OEM hole here, the spare one, but I realized the armrest comes out up until like here, so it's gonna block the switch. So the only option, unfortunately, is to take out this cap. It's just a spare cap, and then we're gonna modify the hole to fit the square switch here, just like this, and then we'll just lock it into place, and then that way we just have to wire it up and it'll be good to go. So I'm gonna cut up the switch here, the hole, install the switch, and then I'm gonna install this back in the cab, and then I'll show you guys the whole operation of everything and how it works. Alright, so the wiring for the coupler is like so. The way I've done it is I've just tapped into a 12-volt supply from one of the other harnesses. I wanted to keep it separate so I could basically just disconnect one thing and the entire thing can be disconnected, this whole assembly here. So I tapped 12 volts from another harness. This happened to be the light switch, basically the lighting harness, and it feeds this switch here. So the 12 volts is the red wire there, and the black wire here is the ground. So that's what I've got going on here. I've just fed it the 12 volts here. The 12 volt output after the switch to the solenoid is this black wire, and then there's the ground for the LED tapped off of that black wire there, and then the 12 volts after the switch for the LED as well. So when we flip the switch, basically the solenoid will turn on, which can be disconnected from this point here, and the LED will also simultaneously turn on. So that's basically the entire wiring setup. I did change the location of the switch as well. This is where I put it, at the same angle. I realized after putting the armrest piece, just test fitting it, there was quite a bit of gap here. Like you could see the switch still quite fairly well, I guess. But when I cut the switch, there was a little bit of play, not that much, very minuscule amount, but it was enough to kind of, you can hear the rattling of the switch. So I just took some hot glue to the side. I chose hot glue because if I want to remove this, or if anyone wants to remove this at some point, you can just take a screwdriver and just scrape it off basically, and the whole piece will come off. It's also just like a rubber gasket for the switch basically. So now it's not moving. We have the whole switch functional. All the other switches are functional in the same manner. I left that cover right here as is, so I couldn't get myself to cut that. So that's basically everything for the switches. There's nothing much more to the coupler install other than putting all of this back together. So let me get it all back together, we'll power it up, and then I'll show you the coupler in action. Alright, so we've got everything hooked up and it's ready to be disconnected. I've got the switch installed. for the coupler. I've got everything installed and put back together, so it's good to go. Now what we are going to do is just hit the switch, and I've also removed the safety pin from the coupler here, the lock pin. That keeps it from opening if you accidentally hit the switch. So let's go ahead and hit the switch, and you guys will see the bucket come apart. If we can see, yeah, so you can see kind of right over here. So right there, if I hit the switch once more, the coupler locks just like that, and if I hit it again to where the red light comes on to open, the coupler opens. There we go. So it's going to be hard to position you guys. Let me try and hold you between my knees, and we can undo the bucket here. This is between the control arms, so hopefully it's not a bad view. But right there, just like that, we are now detached from the bucket. So that's the coupler, perfectly installed and good to go. Let me just reposition it once more to where I can lock it back into place. Alright, so it's positioned, ready to be locked into place. I had to put the phone aside for a minute to get it correctly positioned. Now what we need to do is hit the switch here, and once we do that, you can see it locks perfectly. Now the bucket is not gonna fall off the machine. There we go. So it's all good now, ready to be used. Let me just put it back down, and I'll show you guys the coupler once more. Alright, so that's basically the end of the coupler installation. I left the pipes like this, and I just tightened everything because I needed to give it some room that way. Otherwise, if I clamp them down, it has chances of them getting pinched. So I'm going to test it like this for now, and if it does hang up on something, then I'll have to do something else. But for now, I think it's good to go. Everything is installed, all the wiring is complete, all the plumbing is good to go, and it all functions. So I'm going to call it good for now. If we run into an issue, I might have an update later, but that's basically it for the whole coupler installation. Hope you guys enjoyed and learned something. Once more, you can put the pin in here after locking the bucket to kind of keep it from accidentally disconnecting if you hit the switch by accident. But that's why I placed it in a place where I can't accidentally hit it. So yeah, that's basically it for this. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to watch the thumb installation video as well. We installed the thumb. And again, if you have any questions, let me know in the description below or in the comment section below. Give the video a thumbs up if you haven't already, and subscribe for more projects like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.